I would be doing our current guest, Mitch Belisle, a disservice if I didn't mention him as NLL champion Mitch Belisle, which I think is the coolest thing. Because to be fair, and not a shot at other analysts, Mitch, but some of them do not have that on their resume, and I think that's awesome that you do with Home of the Swarm here. So how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well. You do. I just want to say you do a good job on the broadcast. I do listen to you, and on the Riptide, you guys do great analysis, very clean, very good stuff there. But I have to ask you, can you explain a little bit more about your playing career to us before we get going? I know I saw 66 calls turnovers, and I thought that's mean, man. Like I don't care how many years. That's awesome. Like you can just jar the ball loose. You were kind of a mean guy, weren't you?
Yeah, I was actually in high school. I played offensive midfield, and then I got to Cornell and got pretty quickly moved to defensive midfield, and then pretty quickly again moved back to close defense, where I spent the rest of my college career, and didn't really have a ton of knowledge about the opportunity in the NLL. Back when I got drafted, they did a really cool thing where they hosted a combine for all rookies that were interested in playing the NLL, and so we did drills. We learned from some of the coaches and the current players, and then we did a scrimmage. And it was the most tired I've ever been. They hosted it in Denver, Colorado. I've never been more tired or beat up in my entire life. But it was it was a great opportunity for a guy like me who hadn't had a lot of box experience to learn quickly and see how I could adapt. And I was lucky enough to have Adam Mueller take a chance on me with the New York Titans, and that was my foot in the door, where I played for the Titans for one season. Then there was an expansion draft and got moved over to the Boston Blazers for 2 seasons. And then there was a dispersal draft when they folded and got moved over to the Minnesota Swarm, where I wrapped up my career as a member of the Georgia Swarm, winning, like you said, winning that championship in 2017, which was the perfect cherry on top to end things.
That's amazing to see. And I love all the stories that you gave me. I have to ask you just because you told me you went to Boston. I know NLL doesn't have a Boston team. I know PLL is going back to Boston. How cool were those? Because those fans are very polarizing people, to be fair. But how cool is it to play in Boston? And could you see the league going there again one day?
Yeah, it's a great question. I played for the Boston Cannons in the MLL for about 10 years. So, and my mom's whole side of the family's from Boston. I actually spent quite a bit of when I was young and then in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade in Cape Cod. So I have a really strong ties to the New England area and Boston specifically. But those were some of the most fun years of the NLL of my life. We played right at TD Bank North, the Garden. We all lived in the north end of Boston, which is walking distance from the arena. So we just had an unbelievable time. I think, it's like you said, they're passionate fans. If the Bruins ever were to partner up and bring an NLL team into that barn, that would be really cool. I do think that might be a market that could survive and excel. It's going to take like that kind of partnership or that kind of support from the city to make that happen.
I love it. And knowing that you are with the Riptide, not to get into this rabbit hole, but you do know about support from the city, how that helps, obviously, a team. But the Riptide, of course, are losing again. Before we get to that, producer Joe was going to kill me if I don't do this right here. He likes to make graphics for our guests. So he made you one.
Nice.
And I was like, hey, look at this guy. And there's your Swarm jersey. There's another one without a jersey, obviously. I don't know what it is about every lacrosse player being a good-looking dude. I can't. Thankfully, I wasn't a lacrosse player because obviously, whatever. But there's your graphic. I hope you like it, sir.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad he dug deep in the archives to find some of those.
You got pictures on the internet, man. What can we say? All right. So the New York Riptide, unfortunately, they were on a high note for a good 3 or 4 games there, and now they're back to, I want to say, same old Riptide. At least since we've seen them here. What is your take on this season, like more than halfway through now?
I think this is a team that has shown they can be among the best in the league, and that comes with the challenge is doing that consistently. And that, I think, has been a struggle for them over these last few weeks, is playing at that consistent level offensively. Defensively, I think they did some really good things even in those losses. They just couldn't quite put it all together. And it's a one hand washes the other. If you're not performing offensively, it's really tough to hold down the fort defensively the whole time. So, I think this team could go right back to a 4 or 5 game winning streak to wrap up the season. And the good news is they're sitting, a half a game, 1 game behind the playoff spot. So they are right in position to control their own destiny. The key is just winning these games out, and they're against teams they can beat. They just need to perform.
Yeah, I mentioned the unified standings. You mentioned like they're only like half a game out, and it's so crazy to me. Like right now, it's like they're such a downtrend. I can only imagine how it gets in a player's psyche. But like in 2 weeks, literally, you could be like a 4 seed. It doesn't make any sense to me how this is working. But I'm not mad at it whatsoever. You can skip by this question if you want to, but I have to ask you, how do you feel about the move to the Ottawa Black Bears?
I see it from a lot of different angles. I've been a player that's been part of a team that relocated with the Swarm when we went from Minnesota to Georgia. Yeah. I have strong ties to the ownership group and good relationships there, so I understand their perspective. It's one of those things where it's like it's disappointing no matter what, because there's great fans, there's great roots they started to put down on Long Island. But from a business standpoint, from the NLL standpoint, I do think it's a smart move. I think it's gonna result in really strong results for this team. So I just need to, make sure I get my Canadian visa so they can bring me up to Canada so I can keep broadcasting the games.
I feel that. So you mentioned that because that was my next question. Tyson said he's going up. I mean, are you going to try to follow? Is that what we're hearing?
We'll see. It's really it's up to the team, and I would be happy to stick with that group. I really enjoy spending time with everyone from the players to the coaches to the management to the owners. So I would love to continue to be part of that organization. It's just going to be a matter of if that works with the dollars and cents and travel and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Question for you. Back to the Riptide / Black Bears. They're still the Riptide. You obviously play with Lyle Thompson. You've seen him up close in person, and this guy named Jeff Teat is stinking awesome as well. How does Jeff Teat compare with an all-time great? And I don't want to just put one against the other here, but how does he remind you of all-time greats? Like, how good is this guy watching in person?
He's incredible. I mean, there's no getting around it. He just does things that you're like. I think the challenge with Jeff is he does it and makes it look so easy that it almost Lyle makes some plays, but you're like, he's going all out, and he's like, you can see him grinding out when he's riding the ball back and then gets it back and goes and scores a goal. Jeff is like so casual about it, but he just looks so calm, cool, and collected. Even the goal he scored last week, where he's just running full speed, stops on a dime, kind of takes his time and takes that shot and scores in transition. It's like those plays shouldn't look that easy. And I think, the fact that he makes it look so easy for the casual observer might make you think like, what, this isn't that much head and shoulders above. But like for guys that really know the league, played in the league, it's like this is on a whole nother level. It's like you talk about the game slowing down for people. He plays at a regular pace while everyone else plays in slow-mo.
I've always wondered, do you think sometimes the offense, because I always call it Jeff Teat or die, or whatever terminology you want to use, it felt like for a good while there, they were getting others involved. Would an option 2 at the trade deadline like hurt this team, like a clear like Josh Byrne to this guy's Dane Smith?
Yeah, I think the last 2 games, maybe it was two prior to, not the most recent game, but 2 games they were missing Kyle Matisse. I think Kyle Matisse has been a huge addition. I think he was a big part of that 4-game winning streak. And I think a lot of it too depends on how Riley O'Connor's performing. When Riley's playing really well with Jeff, not only do those 2 rack up a bunch of points, but they open things up for the righties a little bit more. So I think, are there guys out there that maybe could help them? Possibly. I could see like one more righty that maybe is like a quick shifty ball carrier being, a positive for that offense. But then you got to look at, who's willing to part with that and what they're willing to give up for it.
Exactly. No, I love the points there. And one more question about the Riptide. Stephen Keogh, how can you explain from the inside out more so than I can about what difference he made? Like, that was insane. That was like trading Kevin Durant to the Warriors almost, like in obviously a dumbed down version. I couldn't believe how great he was early on.
Yeah, Keo is just like such a smart, savvy competitor, and he's a veteran guy now. And I think he's only a couple years younger than I am. And he just brings a lot of leadership to that locker room. He scores those really crucial goals, and he's just sure. He's a sure thing, you know. And whether he's putting up 3 goals in a game or 1 goal in a game, he's always going to give you his best effort. He's always going to make the right plays. He's going to win some tough, scrappy loose balls, and he's going to support that offense in little ways that people might not appreciate. So that has been a huge addition to that right side. Him and Moose, those two pieces really, they help to kind of, while Teat still may be the one doing a majority of the ball carrying and the distribution, like those guys are making a lot of little plays that give Jeff more options and free up Connor Kieran on the right side as well.
I like Kieran is such a good personality. I've learned that this year that Kieran is a cool guy to seem like to have in the locker room. As for Keo, you mentioned he's only a little bit younger than you. He just turned 37, and you turned 38, I think, in November, if that's correct. So you're not. I'm making you feel better about yourself. You're not a full 2 years. There you go.
Appreciate that. Yeah, he's still doing it at a high level for a 37-year-old. So he's crushing it, chasing Brody and Dan Dawson there.
I mean, I'm 27, and like seeing guys who are younger than me in the league, I'm like, oh, that makes me feel horrible. I'm like, come on, dude. These guys were older than me for the longest time. I have to ask you a couple more questions here. One of them is, I know you don't just specialize in the Riptide, but you're an NLL guy, period. Who's the best team? Because I can think of Albany, Toronto, and San Diego. Any given week, I don't know. Who you got as the best team in the NLL right now?
Toronto Rock are so balanced right now, and Schreiber's playing at such a high level, and now that he's back and healthy. When Rosie's on, their defense is mean, they're big, they push transition, their offense is balanced, and they've got guys that can score from every spot on the floor. Like right now, I cannot see, barring an epic collapse, I can't see anyone taking that 1 seed away from them before the playoffs.
Are you a believer in Albany? Because I finally bought in. It took me like 14 weeks, but I know they're right there in like kind of the backyard of you guys.
Yeah, they lost that game a couple of weeks ago, and I thought maybe they would go on a slide and they could really go down fast. But the same thing. They move off ball, they move the ball well. Their defense flies up the floor, and again, so much of this league comes back to goaltending. And Dougie Jamieson is settling right back into his like goaltender of the year kind of performance. So when those things all come together, good things happen, and they were able to get that win last week over the Riptide, and they're kind of rolling again.
Right. All right, last question for you. I'll be honest, I call myself one of those casual observers, if you will, of lacrosse. I'm still trying to learn as much as I can. Trilogy Lacrosse, I know you're a big part of that. Can you explain that to me and even some newer viewers we might have that aren't well-versed in lacrosse in general?
Sure. Yeah, we're a lacrosse events company. So we run camps for kids all the way from first grade to high school. We run recruiting showcases for those high school guys. We run middle school camps for middle school players. And then we run tournaments as a big piece. So we run, club tournaments in the summer. And actually next week, we are going down to Naples, Florida, and out to Mesa, Arizona to do spring break training. So teams from the East Coast and from colder weather climates will come to nice warm spots, and they'll kick off their spring seasons with a spring break trip with us.
Come to Savannah, Georgia, or Jacksonville, Florida, and I might try to see what's going on. That's awesome. Before I let you go, is there anything else you want to plug? I know you're got to be a busy man.
Yeah, no, I think just appreciate the work that you're doing and so many other people to amplify the NLL and lacrosse as a whole. There's sixes, there's field lacrosse, there's box lacrosse. There's a lot of different ways, but everyone who can get behind it and support it, it's a positive thing. I think it's given me a lot of cool opportunities, and the more opportunities we can give kids to enjoy the sport, whatever shape that is a good positive thing. So thanks for all you do.
And thank you as well, sir. Mitch Belisle, we finally got you on. We'll see you again. I just noticed a wasp in my room, which I love. Anyways, thank you for coming on this show, man. You're awesome, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, Michael.
Mitch Belisle, everybody. And they only show the graphic once again for the people, or just for everybody in general. This is great. Producer Joe had to show it. Love it.